Wait for both. I think both streams will just need a moment to catch up. So
Okie dokie.
what I'd love is hello anyone that is watching, or everyone that is
Hello.
watching. Hi. Can you just post hello, good evening. I can see you in chat. That just gives us a lot of confidence that we are indeed broadcasting to the intended channels. And
Oh
then
my
once
gosh,
we've
there are
got
so many
that,
people in the chat. Oh, sorry, I've never used this platform before. It's
oh,
very exciting.
scary. Of course, so
Yeah.
intelligent. We can
Hello.
be seen, and presumably we can be heard. Otherwise, people wouldn't have started saying that immediately. Great stuff. Obviously, in chat, please do let us know if you have any issues where one of us is too loud, too quiet, too fast moving. I can't think of any other issues you could possibly have. We're very dynamic people.
I like moving very quickly.
Yeah, but we'll try not to alarm anyone. Hello everyone. Welcome to this into games, breaking into games with concept art, with Anna Hollinrake. This is a bit of a Q&A sesh. You and I are just going to chat, and hopefully the things that we talk about will be really helpful for other people to hear, whether it's specifically about concept art, whether it's about the games industry, but hopefully about both. So there we go. My name is Jonas. Anna, do you want to introduce yourself for a moment?
Yeah, absolutely. So, hello everyone. Thank you so much for coming along. I really appreciate your time today. As Jonas said, I am Anna Hollinrake. I am an artist, art director, now creative director. As of a year ago now, I founded an indie studio called Electric Saint. And my background is kind of being a bit of a chronic generalist. I like doing a lot of things in the art sphere, but also kind of outside it as well. But the main things that I focus on are world building and concept art. Two things which I am doing the course on within 2 games. But yeah, so I love to kind of create these bright, stylized environments and worlds that people can get lost in. So my most recent role that you might know me for, excuse me, is one of the art leads on Fall Guys. But I've been involved in. Oh no, sorry, it's fine. Okay, I hope everything's fine. My screen just went white. We're okay. I switched to Firefox recently, and it doesn't handle video very often. I was like, yeah, Google Chrome, boo, but it's all good. We're back in the room. Yeah.
I understand the struggle with browsers. I really do. I
Yeah,
could go on
but
a
as
whole
long as it keeps
tangent.
running, then we're all good. But yeah, so I do a whole bunch of stuff, some indie things as well. I worked on Adventure Time, Pirates of the Enchiridion, and this little game that I will talk about forever until I die called Lola and the Giant. And yeah, I love to make weird artsy stuff, and I'm very excited to talk to you about it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And so just as a sort of bit of a framing device there, you mentioned a course, and so I'll just sort of expand a little bit about that. Into Games, the organization who are hosting this talk, have run previously with yourself something called a sprint, which are these like little 2-week burst courses where people sort of come and they get to get experience from someone who's in the industry. They spend their evenings learning, so it's like 2 to 3 hours a week learning in the evenings. And it's got sort of other people from the industry who come in and do their little masterclasses, which is Anna, where we've first spoken. And you are going to be a course lead on a concept art course in the near future, sometime in September, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And just so just for a bit of context, if that's interesting, if that sounds nice to you, that the viewers, head on over to it's intogames.courses. You can see the list of courses there. It's not just concept art. I believe there's a programming one and potentially a level design one in the near future as well. Do keep your eyes open on them. And as you keep watching the chat, we'll there's a little discount code that I will unveil later on. But enough of the formal sponsorship. Anna, I'm gonna ask you some questions.
Yes, please.
As is the format of a
Lay 'em on
Q&A.
me.
So a nice sort of let's go back to the beginning, shall we? How did you get
Mm-hmm.
how did you get in started in specifically the games industry and concept art, and were there specific steps that you were taking kind of in those early stages to help you build your career?
I mean, the place that I got started was this tumbling into pet sims online when I was like maybe 12, 13. And I discovered digital art around then. I found DeviantArt and I discovered the concept of anime. And I was just so delighted by all of this new art that I'd found on various weird websites with flashing colorful gifs that I started putting things together in Paint Shop Pro 9, just drawing for the joy of drawing, not really knowing that it was something that could become a career. I also played a lot of games. I loved many games from a very early age, and tried even making some of my own. And around about the time I hit 15, 16, I started to realize that maybe games didn't just emerge fully formed, and they actually had to, be built rather than just springing up out of the ground. And I had this very tangible moment when I was playing Fable 2, when I saw some of these digital paintings in a loading screen, and I had a moment of, I do digital paintings. They're not necessarily on that level of digital paintings, and they're a little bit, more creative interpretations of anatomy. But I realized that was something that I could do, that was a potential route in. And I think maybe, it helped that Fable was made in the UK. It had a very kind of British sensibility. And so it was a little sign that, games also get made here. I'm based in the UK, if it wasn't painfully obvious already. So I realized that was something that could happen. Anyway, I kind of went full steam ahead working on my portfolio. I went through every single games course in the country to look at all of their graduate work, because I'm cripplingly type A. And then I did a foundation art course, which was bad, just bad. I tried to do fine art, but when you're like a very representational painter who's focused entirely on doing essentially quite commercial work, you don't get along with your lecturer very much. But I got into a video games art course, and then kind of went from there. It's not, in some ways, the most adventurous of routes in, given that I just picked the thing that I wanted to do and ran after it very, very aggressively. But yeah, in the process of that course, learned 3D very much against my will. There was much kicking and screaming until I actually got to do the stylized part of it. It didn't help that a lot of the time I was making literal trash, like taking photos of people's bins. Like the first 3D project that I had to do was of a wheelie bin, and we had to source our own reference. So it was a lot of bin photography around the streets of Leicester. And that wasn't the most inspiring, but when we got into third year, I was getting to do things that had all of the glowy color palettes that I really loved. And yeah, I graduated from there and was unemployed for a bit, did my time as a barista, and then eventually I got a job in the industry. So yeah.
Just that bit, the barista bit at the end, I feel that deeply. I
Yeah.
feel that
Yeah.
deeply.
I'd like burger waitress, data entry temp,
Yeah.
yeah.
No. All the food and beverage filler jobs in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, straight out of uni with that stuff as well. Excellent stuff. Thank you for all of that. Very enlightening. And then, so you're in the industry now. We can say that very confidently. We know it. It's why we're here today. And obviously, that there are a lot of people watching this because they would like to be in the industry, or they're in the industry, but they want to develop and grow those skills. So sort of essentially, being an artist, it requires skills and it requires technologies and tools. It's not enough to be able to kind of put pen to paper. There are, of course, various different programs and technologies being used in the industry. And and some are obviously very, very modern and useful, but there may be some that are actually out of date and not being used anymore. So on that sort of subject, what do you think are quite essential skills and essential tools that if someone were aspiring to be a concept artist, that they should start researching, maybe doing those little free trials? What should people know?
That's a really interesting question, because I sit in a bit of a weird spot, I think, with 3D, because I was a 3D environment artist and I've bounced around, I think, every 3D package under the sun. And I've come down pretty hard on the side of Blender just because of how expensive everything is. But I feel like people get pushed toward these quite complicated tools quite early now, and 3D can be really intimidating when you're looking to get into concept art if you're doing this purely 2D approach. So I really like, I don't know, I've completely gone off tangent already, but I think if you're looking to introduce some 3D into your work, maybe making it a little bit more, if you want to use it for blockouts or something. Blender is nice and simple, but I've known people to use Townscaper and that kind of thing, like games or The Sims, for starting out in using 3D for their own work. But then, once you do get into the industry space, I think ramping up to those quite complicated tools is a really good way to start learning. This is, if I place these objects here and I lower the camera, then I can use that to draw from. But I think it's pretty important to be able to use certain industry standard tools like Photoshop. And I think Procreate is very commonly used nowadays on something on iPads. It's a really great way to kind of get started, but delivering specific PSDs is very necessary. So I think making sure that you've got a good idea of Photoshop. It has unfortunately a chokehold on the industry, Adobe, but yeah, I think something like that is good. And then if you can jump into something like Blender, if you want to do those 3D blockouts, that's great. But I think through and through, having your fundamentals there is the main thing. Having those artistic fundamentals, you can't really fake that. Yeah, so I'd say if you can get your head around Photoshop, that's very important. If you do want to incorporate 3D into your work, I think it can feel like you have to sculpt very complicated things in ZBrush, and if you don't want to do that, I wouldn't say I wouldn't, I guess. If it interests you, go for it, but don't feel like you have to know all of these very complicated tools, because you may end up just spending ages trying to achieve a look that you could have just drawn. So yeah, rambly answer that I jumped to 3 points in before I did my first point. Anyway, sorry.
That's fine. It's your perspective, it's your story, and I think that's really the important part. And I think anyone who has this conversation, there's always that subtext of, well, is there any one answer? Probably not. So it's about,
no, God, no.
Yeah, but
yeah.
But you're very, very much like your experiences and how you found it to be so far. Question 3 on my list. So portfolio is a really important keyword when it comes to art. It's a visual skill more than any other. So a lot of these roles, they require you to have a portfolio, and that's obviously incredibly important in the games industry. So have you got sort of tips about how one curates, creates, and kind of shares a portfolio, something that strikes, something that succeeds? Is it about just having loads and loads of just art, or is it about perhaps cherry picking?
I'm saying that now. No. Oh my gosh. I could do a little rant about portfolios. Maybe I should do it now. Because I've been on the receiving end of a lot of applications when I've been doing hiring stuff, and it is just frustrating, from my side, seeing people kind of shoot themselves in the foot sometimes when they've got like all of this beautiful work that they've developed, but they are overwhelming the viewer, or they are not answering the question that the job application is trying to pose. The main one is way too much work, because the thing is, your portfolio is only as strong as its weakest piece. And if you are putting 20 pieces in there and some of them are 3 years old, and you can do a lot better than that, and they are kind of rough sketches, it becomes very overwhelming. Like, you really want, so there's a difference between application portfolios and work like catalogs of your work, if that makes sense. Like, if you're applying for something, you usually have a specific role that you're going for, and so you want to be able to say, look, this is me nailing the thing that you want me to be able to do. And for that kind of portfolio, I say you only need 6 pieces potentially. Like, I would really encourage people to not go above 12. Unless they've got just a vast amount of work that they are really, really proud of and has a really high level of fidelity. And when you're like studying and when you are developing, your work tends to increase in proficiency, pretty quickly. And you can kind of leave a lot of stuff behind. And I would say keep it minimal. Don't make people click around, for the love of God. This is another one. Like, I have opened up portfolios that open to a landing page, and then I want to go and see a piece of art, and I have to click into that piece of art, and it gives me 2 bits of it, and then I have to go back and click into another project and get all of that and see that. And it's like I'm having to go back and forward and back and forward. Just put it all on one page, just all entirely on one page, so that you can just scroll through it. Like, just make it as easy as possible for people to see your work, see it in a decent quality, and have a little bit of explanation. That's great. And start really strong. Show some process in the middle. If you've got like some, when I say process, I mean more like breakdowns. So if you've got all of these really beautiful polished bits of like key art, or like scenes that have things going on in them, maybe you want to have some character turnarounds like in the middle that feature some of the characters in those illustrations, and then finish really strong. Just make it really clear the work that you're putting forward. I also really encourage multiple portfolios when you're applying for jobs. Like, I made like a specific page on my portfolio. Like, I've done it a couple of times when I'm applying for a job, and I'll make sure I put like the studio name in the link, so it's like, I made this just for you, because it's that extra little bit of effort that does tend to just show that you're not just firing out an application at random. So having separate portfolios can be really helpful for that, because especially if you're a generalist like I am, and if you are going for a concept art role, but you can also do a little bit of UI and graphic design, and then you go for a UI role, people are going to be a bit unsure. It could be a positive, maybe like sprinkle a tiny bit in as part of like the work you have there, use it to your advantage. But if you're presenting an entirely UI portfolio to a concept art role, a concept art like hiring manager, that doesn't say that you can answer their question. So I would really suggest kind of being minimal and tailoring to the kind of roles that you want. You've obviously got ArtStation as well, and that does tend to house a lot of people's portfolios now. So I think that's a pretty solid option. I also like to have a website, just because, there's a lot of stuff that's been going on with ArtStation recently. And I think that I prefer to have a little bit more control over it as well, because it is still like a feed a bit too. So there are a lot of options out there, but I would say be aggressively curatory. I don't think that's a word, but you maybe
I
get the idea.
I know what you mean. Curate. No. I'm not going to
Cur-
pretend.
curate things and like if you can, I would say try to have a few pieces that might link together in a broader project. So, for example, if you have a character from an environment, have those two pieces on, have those two pieces kind of together. So you've got little projects, and you can kind of show that you're expanding on stuff, and you're not just making nice images for nice images' sake. They also have a purpose.
Cool, great stuff. Thank you very much. I just want to clarify or sort of address. I accidentally got a comment up on screen. I was trying to copy the text for later. So Alice, who was asked a question in the YouTube chat, I'm going to come back to that question later if we have time. I'm going to try and make sure there's a bit of a space for people in chat to ask their questions and get them answered. So please don't worry, I'm not ignoring you, but also my apologies for bringing up your comment on the screen for like half a second.
I'm just very impressed with how all of this stuff works. I don't know. I Twitch streamed back in 2015. I've not done it since. It's all I'm like, oh, technology. So
yeah. I do a lot of Twitch streaming, but that surprised me. That thing where I can bring a comment on screen. Whew, how far we've come. Anyways, let's move on. On the sort of the subject of making concept art, on taking something from an idea or literally a concept and bringing it to life as an image that people can then look at, brainstorming to final rendering. What are some best practices that you have learned over the years? The Anna Hollinrake guide to concept art. What does that look like?
Okay, so I mean, I think part of my issue, if I'm being completely brutally honest here, is that I like to change things up a lot. Everything is a little bit vibes driven, shall we say. Sometimes I use 3D, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just throw myself into a piece, and sometimes I'll plan things out with thumbnails. I've never been particularly good at sticking to one process because bluntly I get bored. But I think that when I'm trying to make something, if I'm being very, very practical about it, I go the, classic route of I look at reference, although I need to be better at looking at reference. And then, like, if I'm making a small environment, sorry, sounds outside.
Yep.
If I'm making a small environment, I'll grab some reference. I'll just throw some boxes down, maybe if I'm feeling indulgent in Blender, and take some very, very quick shots of it, because then I get to kind of feel like a little bit of a cinematographer. I'll sketch over the top of it because I don't think in shape. It's really annoying when people are like, I just threw some shapes down. I end up looking like I'm drawing something out of a preschool because my shapes are not dynamic and complicated, because I think in line, like there's it's just the way that I feel things out, I suppose. And I felt very guilty about not thinking in shape for a very long time, but it's just how it is. And then I'll put flats down, and I'm desperately trying to use like adjustment layers rather than just like vibes painting, because historically, I've gotten very bored. It depends. Okay, this really depends on whether it has to be delivered with specific requirements. Because I art directed a TV show, this 2D animated show for CBeebies called Love Monster, and that has very, very strict requirements on making a production background. If I'm just creating an environment, a scene, a little bit of like visual development, sometimes I'll just paint, it's a new layer over the top, and I'll just paint, and then I can't be bothered to get the eraser, so I just paint like white over the top or something. It's bad, it's not good. And then I'll just smush everything down to one layer, which is not great if you're doing something that has like a practical output to it. So maybe rather than just looking at it, if you have to move things around. But yeah, if I'm being good about something, I'll usually try to be a bit more methodical with my adjustment layers. But there is the vibes inevitability when I just want to go in with like big painty shapes over the top. I tend to find that, and this is kind of part of why I've recently started experimenting with oils, because I tend to discover images rather than plan them. I will sometimes have an image very clearly in my mind of what I want, but a lot of the time I have a few ideas and I have to just start drawing and discover it along the way. And I'll have some springboards to get to that point, but I find that I almost build up a patina of like brush strokes, and then sometimes I'll go over the top of things, and I tend to overpaint quite a bit because you start getting like the history of the brush strokes, the bits you haven't covered up coming through, which is why I'm really excited about getting into oil painting at the moment, because I'm a chronic noodler. So yeah.
Not a bad thing. It sounds like it's working out, you know. So absolutely go for it. Thank you very much for that. Let me just see. I'm gonna go over here. Anna, you and I have met before in a physical
Yes.
space. And that space was quite good for what this question is going to be about: networking. Having seen you in the real world, that is
On the
evidence that you
3D plane.
exactly, that is evidence that you do in fact once in a while either socialize and or network
I have
and or
corporeal form. Sorry, yes.
exactly. You are, yeah, exactly. Proven. We've managed to yank you out the machine once, and I'm sure it can be done again. So just a really good question, just about like, how do you know, in your experience, if you were on the outside of the games industry, you know, well, I suppose one thing you will hear a lot when you're entering the games industry is, you know, it is a lot about of who you know. Not because of just like, you know, it's not pure nepotism. Oh my god, I know someone, they give me a job, but it's like knowing that the opportunities are there. It's knowing about like resources and tools that are really not visible in any other way. So just in that terms, how, you know, do you sort of have advice, or do you have a sort of particular perspective that you take when it comes to networking and making connections? And that can be both online and in person, because there are lots of online communities.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like I maybe sound, is it pretentious? I hate the term networking. I absolutely loathe it. And I think a
Sure.
big part of that comes from a place of not wanting to feel like someone is trying to get something out of you, or that someone feels like you're only talking to them because they want to get somewhere or get something. Regretfully, it is definitely something that kind of has to happen. I've found much more when, because I've started a studio, and there's a lot more biz people, and they're terrifying. It's terrifying. But when you're kind of existing on a more art-based plane of existence, I, I I've always kind of approached that in a more like, I just want to make friends. I want to find people who I resonate with, who I get on well with, and I've found that getting a almost like a little cohort of people who are at the same point as you, who are trying to work on their skills, and they're pushing to get into the industry. If you have a group of people like that you find, they are worth their weight in gold. I've had that happen a couple times, a few times actually. At the foundation art course, the terrible foundation art course, I met an illustrator there who invited me to a DeviantArt chat group about space art that I never did a single piece of space art, but we all just sat in this little chat room and did painting battles and just gave each other feedback. And like, I look at that group and where they are now, and everyone just lifted each other up naturally. Same thing with my university course, same thing with like getting into the industry. Your greatest supporters are very often the people that you kind of meet and along the way. So I think just trying to find those friends that will just say, oh, hey, you know, we've known each other for a year now, we've been studying art, I've got this freelance job, but I've got something here, shall I put your name forward for it? So helpful. That's how I got my first job in industry. And that is super valuable. Another thing that I would recommend is if you like being terminally online like I do, well, less so now, but it used to be useful. I think it still is useful. I think just the spaces that it now happens in have, you know, moved on slightly from DeviantArt chat rooms. But I got a huge amount of professional success from Twitter. May she rest in peace. And like, like I really should be wearing like all black. I'm in mourning. I'm still in mourning. But yeah, I posted on there, like more to do with games, really. Like I just got into conversations with games people that I thought were cool and interesting. I put myself out there. I probably chronically overshared a bit too much, but I really enjoyed being online and finding those communities and just kind of seeing what everyone else was doing and just going along to stuff and seeing. I found that most of the things that have pushed me into exciting new career directions, mostly just me saying yes to something kind of weird or just kind of unexpected. Like for example, I took part in, I mean, this is a very specific train, I suppose, but I remember I posted on the Visible Women hashtag, which is funny because I'm non-binary, but how things change. And I posted on the Visible Women hashtag back in 2016. I met someone through that, and we became Twitter mutuals. And then I dropped in onto her Twitch stream on a boring Sunday. I asked her for some advice on drawing characters. I drew some characters. She said, I really like that. Have you ever tabled a convention before? I was like, no. And she said, would you like to share my table? Which is wild. Like she'd never met me before. And suddenly she was like, yeah, if you want, you can just crash in my hotel room. And I bought £100 worth of prints. And then I was at Bournemouth Comic Con. I was having a great time. Someone on Twitter saw that I was in Bournemouth. They said, hey, Anna, do you do video game talks? And I said, no, but I could write one. And then I wrote a talk on mental health and burnout in games, kind of building on some of the chronic oversharing that I had been doing, I suppose, at the time. And people really resonated with it. I was extremely lucky that it was filmed and professionally cut together. And sorry, this is a very long story, but essentially I just said yes to a bunch of stuff, did a bunch of talks, and then put myself forward for like the BAFTA Breakthrough Brit thing because of that. And I was excited working on stuff. And I only really put myself forward for that because I was sad and wanted to do something that, like, I was like, no, I'm cheering myself on. Like I'm gonna throw myself into something because I just, it's always like a kind of, I don't know if we're allowed to swear, like a fuck you to like all the things that were stressing me out at the time. And yeah, and I got that. So it wasn't really planned in any way, but just saying yes to weird stuff and putting myself forward for things I didn't think I'd get, but I was just kind of impulsive in that way.
Gotcha.
Just wild. Nothing I could have planned for, but just being at stuff and being visible. It's helpful.
Yeah, and again, this is just one of those things, isn't there, where there is no one answer for everyone, right? There is no one way to grow a community around you. I'm avoiding the word networking.
No,
Um,
no, no.
uh,
It's not that I'm very
I get it. I
practical
get it.
about it.
Yeah.
I think I prefer just, making friends. Quite
Yeah,
nice.
it's very
Yeah.
business, isn't it? It's very corporate,
Yeah.
all this
But
networking.
apparently I was chatting to one of my very dear friends, and I was like, Rosa, I can't remember when we first met. And apparently I just ran up to her at a BAFTA crew thing, which was like this, it doesn't exist anymore. I think BAFTA Connect is the new version, but it was like for people who had just kind of started in the industry. Apparently I just ran up to her and this other person and just was very cheerful and then gave them my card. So maybe I'm secretly a networking machine, but I've just blitzed it all from my memory. But I think it mostly is being like very enthusiastic. So.
Excellent stuff. Thank you very much. You mentioned somewhere in all of that, mental health came up, which I think, that's a really important topic, especially in the games industry. It's going to show off
Yeah.
that I've got the Sidekick journal just over here, but that's a whole different talk, isn't it? But basically, the main sort of question here is, for artists, you there's lots of creative challenges. You can sort of handle artist block and not be sure how to move forward. A lot of this can sort of either result in sort of poor mental health, but not feeling positive about your work, or it may stem from that. It's a vicious cycle. So sort of, you mentioned you did a talk on it. That's actually, that's where I got the idea from. So, what were some of the fundamentals about that talk, and what are some sort of really key points that you would like people to kind of take away in terms of looking after themselves and staying motivated?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the main one that people tended to go oof about was bragging about, like, humble bragging, half bragging about how much work you've done and how tired you are. One, isn't cool, and two, doesn't help you or the people around you. And this came directly from being at uni surrounded by everyone. And I did this as well. I posted pictures of like all of the like energy drinks and like Pringles cans that I was having whilst pulling an all-nighter. And it wasn't useful. Like, there was this glamorization of overwork and exhaustion and not really taking care of ourselves that was like really baked in. And I don't think it's maybe as prevalent now. People are, self-care is a thing. But I think sometimes people can think that they're like magically opted out. There's that TikTok that's like, everyone deserves care and compassion and time to rest, but not me. But everyone else, but not me. Like it's one of those things. Like you can hear these messages, but it's very, very difficult to actually apply them to yourself, honestly, sometimes. And you think that you'll be the exception to the rule, but I found out in a very brutal way that I wasn't. After I posted the Monster Energy drink photo, I strained my arm so badly I couldn't draw for 4 months after doing that all-nighter. It was really dumb. I had to get like acupressure or the NHS version of the arm needles. And I hadn't eaten any breakfast, so I nearly fainted. So don't do that. But I think a
There's a
lot of
bad time to mention. Sponsored by Monster Energy. No, sorry,
yeah,
carry on,
yeah.
carry on.
Yeah. So I really, implore people to just do some creative inhaling as well, and like take those breaks. Like, every single time I don't do work, like don't do art for a long weekend, and then I come back and I'm like, I have so many ideas. Wow, who could have seen this coming? It's like full surprise Pikachu face every single time. But I think it's so easy to just get lost in churning out work, in the obligation of constant creativity. I mean, half of it is due to the fact that, you know, the art we put out there is deemed to be content rather than art for art's merit. This endless kind of push to be making things constantly, and it's exhausting. Don't get me wrong, all of this requires effort. Like, getting into the industry is work, and it needs like time put into it. There aren't shortcuts, but don't just exhaust yourself in the first 3-4 years. Like, if you want to be doing this for literal decades, you've got to take time with it. I really struggle with taking time off. Sometimes I will just kind of sit myself down on the sofa and be like, Anna, you expect nothing from today. Nothing. Like, you can chill, because I find that procrastinating on doing the thing that you feel very bad about not doing is more exhausting than actually doing the thing itself. Because it just has this great emotional cost to it. So yeah, I think those are some of the cliff notes. I think that talk is on YouTube somewhere. Yeah, if people want to look that up.
Cool.
But yeah. I think it's tough, because you have to like dedicate yourself to something, and you have to put the effort in. But I think it's also a good idea to give yourself a breather. And also, when people say work smart, not hard, I feel like it's kind of a nonsense sentence, because you're like, well, what does that even mean? But when I'm working smart, I'm actually like paying attention to my learning style. Like, if I'm studying, I'll be asking myself questions. Why doesn't this work? Why is this the way that it is? Can I be doing this in like a more physical way? I'm a kinesthetic learner. I am riddled with ADHD. And so if I don't have like the presence of other people around, if I'm just mindlessly copying something, I might as well not be doing it, because I need that kind of analysis to be able to get it to go in. So when I'm trying to work smart, I'm making sure that I'm asking myself questions and analyzing what I'm doing rather than just copying. That's a tangent. Anyway, sorry.
No, absolutely, gotcha. And it's I think it's especially hard, right, when the thing that you spend so much time working on is so ingrained in the things you probably spend your time enjoying recreationally.
Yeah.
So you go play a video game, you know, you play a beautiful video game, you know, Tears of the Kingdom. Oh, look at that landscape. Oh man, if only I could draw that landscape. And then the next thing you know, you're working, because you're so.
Oh, it gets so much worse than that, though. It gets so much worse. I remember when I first started university, and I the first, I think, month in, Skyrim came out, and I'd just done I'd just done my first kind of 3D model of a tree, and no one went into the computer labs, for like an entire week straight, because everyone was just at home playing Skyrim. But I remember just toddling around, having a look at all of the Skyrim assets, and I stopped in front of this tree, and I looked at it, and I saw a texture seam, and I was like, ugh. Now this is just what my life is going to be. I'm just going to be noticing 3D art problems for the rest of my life. Or just like walking around like, oh my god, that the bit in the beginning of Breath of the Wild when you have woken up in the little cave and there's just that ledge that teaches you to pull yourself up, and there's just a bit of mud on the left of the player, and I remember just standing there, just moving back and forth and being like, oh, that's very interesting. They've got like some nice, interesting reflection kind of on there, but the texture resolution is really low. That's useless. Well, it's not useless. It's quite helpful. Very, very distracting.
Yeah, Yeah.
Very annoying.
Not no good for a budding speedrunner, really, is it?
No.
And gosh,
You
yeah,
can't get distracted by normal maps when you're trying to beat a world record.
exactly. And Skyrim in that first semester of university, 2011 November. Oh god, I think I just holed up in my room for like 4 days straight. It's
Yeah.
terrible stuff. Let's stick on topic. I'm going to ask you one more question from my
Hmm.
questions, and then I'm going to start going through chat and asking questions there. We've
Hmm.
got about 15 minutes just to give you an idea of sort of time and
Cool.
expectation. So really, I think this is a great question. I love this, which is just from you. You will have had a lot of experience of people coming to you, either entering the industry, new in the industry, wanting to enter into the industry, and you will have seen a lot of newcomers enter the industry in various different ways, either through social
Hmm.
media or through various events. What do you find are some common mistakes and pitfalls that people coming into the industry, people getting into concept art, what kind of mistakes are they making that people watching now could be aware of? Could they preempt those mistakes, and can they avoid them? Is really important.
Oh, do you mean like once they're in, like once
I
they've got their first job, or just on the verge of getting in, like they have their portfolio there?
I think I would like to take a little bit of column A and column B,
Okay,
if you don't
cool. Yeah.
mind.
So I mean, when it comes to like getting in, like you've got your portfolio. It's not full of 20,000 things. It's hitting all those levels. You've put effort into the presentation. You've got fun little typography bits to really sell stuff. The first one that I see, once again coming back to applications, is like, if they want a cover letter, do not put a generic cover letter in.
Mm,
Like, just get a little reference, a little something, just to reference the job, and also like your interest in the studio. So important. Don't write a completely new one from scratch unless it's something that you really care about and you're just here to fill it with like passion and jazzy little jokes maybe. But what I've always done is have a document, and every time I write a cover letter, anything new goes into that document, and then it's got little sections, and it's like, you can start building it.
mm,
Like, don't make life hard for yourself, but make sure you've got a good cover letter, because the thing is, that's the first thing that people see. And that is, going to sell you as much as your portfolio,
mhm.
because a lot of it is like personal skills as well. Like, I think we also neglect to acknowledge that team working requires working with a team and being able to communicate. Who knew? What a
Yeah.
concept. And being able to communicate effectively, and be good to get along with. It's your first way to sell that effectively. I think other pitfalls that I have seen, like once you kind of get in, tend to once again be around communication, and like making sure that you are like okay with taking feedback on your, like receiving that feedback on your work. I was very lucky that I had a very clear series of expectations like placed on me at uni. It was like, you cannot be precious about stuff. But it's also okay to be upset if work gets thrown out, but don't take that out on people. It's like it's normal to be like, oh, well, that's frustrating, but make sure that you're able to take feedback appropriately, and also make sure that you're communicating your needs. Like, I think that, somewhat coming back to that point about overwork, it can feel like I think this is more pronounced now that we've got remote working being much more of a thing, like remote contract working, that kind of thing, where you have less exposure to like direct kind of sat next to your lead kind of exposure to the structures that exist within a studio. If you're struggling with something, if you're finding you need more time, or you don't really know where to take something, make sure that you're communicating that you're like asking for feedback, because people 9 times out of 10 want to help. And also like having that communication builds up those like workplace relationships, which often can turn into those rising tide lifts all boats kind of situations, where you have that cohort of people helping each other out. So making sure that you're communicating when you're finding things a little difficult, a little challenging, asking for feedback, being proactive about it, but also not hiding your problems. Like I've seen people in the past, when they've had like a lot of work that they're struggling with, they'll just quietly work on it. And they'll either get it done and set these unrealistic expectations of what they can achieve, when actually they were pulling like all-nighters or something to get it finished, or they won't be able to kind of nail something because they didn't have the feedback that they needed. Obviously, this is done in this very idealistic way where all bosses are understanding and deadlines are, you know, reasonable. So, you know, there's still a lot of work to be done there. And yeah, but I find that those are the things I see popping up, especially with more kind of junior level things.
Absolutely, gotcha. On the sort of, you mentioned that topic of, you know, really being able to communicate, being able to get feedback, you know, and sort of really being able to communicate your process and your needs. It's a good time to mention that this chat is being hosted by Into Games. Into Games are offering, like, no, right, like we're going for sponsorship. But no, it's relevant. You know, the reason that you and I are talking today really is just to raise a bit of awareness as well about Into Games and what they're doing at the moment, which is they're doing these short 2 to 3 week long courses. And you yourself are going to be leading a concept art course in the near future.
I am. It starts on September the 18th.
September the 18th. That's so soon.
It is, yeah.
And oh god, no, it's worryingly soon. Oh no, it's real. And so just at the bottom of the screen there.
Sorry, this is very look at this production value. Incredible.
Exactly. I know, crazy. So just to be aware that if you are someone who has enjoyed what we're talking about today, but you want to see actually more of those practical concepts, you know, sort of brought to you through a series of sort of live what's the word I'm looking for here, sort of live sessions with Anna, where Anna, you will be able to talk more about the actual work process. You know, it's not just about the theory of the industry, it's not the theory of concept art. You will actually talk through a real process with real examples, and you will be there kind of talking to people live.
I think the really important thing that I'm most excited about with this is that it is a live course. It's not a video subscription. It's not a series of like YouTube videos that you can watch or something on Skillshare. I don't succeed with them. I've signed up to so many tutorial platforms and I just don't watch them. I cry over how much I've spent on schoolism, and I just don't really work that way. My brain doesn't work that way. And so I really love the way that this has been set up to have like little study groups, and it's over the course of 2-3 weeks in the evenings. And yeah, the goal is for you to come out of it with like between like 1 to 3 portfolio pieces. Basically, you get out what you put in. And I'll be going through environments, some things to make backgrounds. I have a backgrounds rant as well, less scary. In my conventions, I've been doing conventions for years now, and the number one thing that people say to me is, I'm bad at backgrounds, I can't do backgrounds. And I'm like, no, I will show you. Like, we'll do this. If you're someone like me who really struggles with just sitting and just getting through tutorials and needs that kind of external accountability, that's basically what it's built for.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you sort of touched on there, it's got that whole element where you were talking about the networking earlier. It's really good to have a group of people at your level, a cohort, people who you get
Yeah,
on with.
yeah.
Part of the course will be great. Just in the sense of you will get the prospective member, you get put in a group of other people who you are going to work together. You're going to give each other iterative feedback. It's going to be facilitated, but you have to lead the session. You, the member of the course, you have to lead the feedback. You have to deliver the feedback, and you have to action that feedback independently. We're not standing over your shoulder telling you how to do it all. I say we because I will also be kind of doing this role, facilitating and chatting and just making sure that all the links work on time, which is scary when they
And
don't.
I'm very, very grateful that you're doing that, because there's too many things at once for me to handle. I'm very happy. Yeah.
No, share the workload. So just a little bit about the course there, and if you've enjoyed what you've heard here, then please do check out the course. There's a 25% discount code below. Into Games really do want to make their courses quite accessible to everyone, regardless of color, creed, gender, financial support, all of these things. So please do get in touch if you see the course and you feel like you can't do it for a particular reason, because Into Games will more than happily talk to you about how those barriers might be overcome. Because yay, industry. On that note, I don't have much longer left. So what I would like to do is, if you don't mind, Anna, if we can do sort of like quick fire.
Yes, absolutely.
Sort of
I'll
thing.
try not to ramble.
So
Let's
I'm
go.
we'll go one question at a time. And if you feel you need to really talk about it, then just do.
Yep.
And then what I'll do is we'll find a good time to just start ramping down.
Cool.
So I'm going to go for that first comment. I'm going to bring it up on screen.
Oh.
Alice Hinton Jones asked earlier, do you have any tips for a generalist on how to narrow down towards a specific direction?
Indies don't find it off-putting. Indies don't
that
find it off-putting. And then if you make multiple portfolios, then they don't know if you're going for a specific role.
There you go. Indies don't find it off-putting. Right. Are you happy to move on to the next question?
Yep, let's go.
Cool. Excellent. This one. I would love to know what Anna
generated.
thinks of
Oh, I'm so
AI
sorry. I'm just reading.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll let you read them out.
No. AI art generators. I think I was going to sort of word this a little bit more specifically, which is, what are the potential positives? If any, do you perceive any positives in AI and what it's doing in the art sphere? It's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's already kind of like an issue with jobs. It's taking up, to be fair, a lot of stuff that people already wouldn't pay for. You still can't curate effectively. I think it needs to be done with approval. I would love to use a generator that was trained on non-copyrighted work, because I don't know, that it's fun seeing what kind of comes out of it. But I don't feel super great about how a lot of the AI positive people outwardly mock artists for being upset about stuff. I think that the discussion has gotten really messy, and I wish that it wasn't a nightmare, but it kind of is. So, yes.
I wish it wasn't a nightmare, but it kind of is.
Yeah.
Anna Hollinrake on AI. I think that's enough, isn't it? We'll go to the next question. Truly. The tallest dwarf. Do you have any tips on navigating that kind of post-graduation, pre-employment, job searching specifically? And we mentioned it earlier, but headspace and mental health, but I suppose more specifically to job searching.
Yeah. Okay. So it takes a while. It's okay. It takes a while, and it's okay. It's taken a while for a bunch of people to get, like, so many people that I know, to get work out of, like, once they've graduated. Like, the industry is rife with people, well, not rife. You see the select few people who get the very prestigious internships, and you think that that's the norm, and it's not. It is not in any way. People take a while to get in. That's totally fine. In terms of mental health stuff, I mean, it's been great for me. Get a hobby that's not art. I've gotten really into roller skating.
Get a hobby that's not art.
But in terms of like job searching, just making sure that you're putting yourself out there, that you're keeping an eye on posts like work calls. I really recommend doing like cheeky little game jams if you're trying to get some like applicable art work experience. And then you've got an itch.io link that you can post and say, look, here's some of my work on stuff. And also you get to be in contact with potential collaborators and good folks.
Brilliant stuff. We're just hitting 7:30. I'm going to go to this one last question, and then we'll just start wrapping up. But I really want to. It's a bit of a longer question, which is just, when you're creating a design, either character or environment, how many iterations do you usually go through? Any silhouette making? But I love the last bit. Have you ever loved a first pass and stuck with it? Has it ever?
Yes, so many times. Okay, once again, it's a potential rank question. We have been told that we have to make pages and pages of silhouettes and thumbnails, and sometimes the vibes are right from the get-go, and that's fine. You don't have to just throw loads of stuff there. Also, if you're going to do silhouettes and thumbnails, make them different, like make them significantly different. I remember showing a bunch of costume concepts to this amazing artist, and they were just like slightly color shifted jumpers, and I had a page of slightly color shifted jumpers, and I was like, what problem am I solving here? Like, it's not drastic enough. So make sure if you're going to do silhouettes, they're varied, and you don't have to do loads and loads of them if you really feel like something is vibing from the get-go. Iteration is great. Also, I don't really think in silhouette I'll draw, like, once again, as I said, shape and silhouette isn't my thing. I'll do some sketches, I'll feel out the character, I'll almost kind of act it out a little bit, and then I'll just block the sketching afterward, because that's how my brain works, and that's okay. So yeah, all of the art rules, not all of the art rules, perspective has rules, but like many of the art rules are made up. The ones that like are socially derived. I didn't use the soft brush for most of my artistic life because someone told me it was like the sign of a bad artist and I should be able to paint everything with like 100% hard round. Shut up. No, that's dumb. Use the tools that you have, and also those weird expectations that are placed on you by just like hyper specific community opinions, throw them to the wind. Do what makes you happy.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you. Do what makes you happy. I think that's probably easily one of the best ways to end any sort of live session. Yeah. Do what makes you happy. Anna, thank you so much for all of that. There is actually a question here that I was going to ask anyway, because I think it's important. Anna Hollinrake, after this call, how do people keep up with your work? Do you want to point people to your website? I think quite importantly as well, are you open? Are there any socials that you're quite happy for people to either follow you on? And you're right. Have you been attacked?
There was just a very loud sound, but I think it was my cat.
Okay.
Doing something.
As long as you're right, this would be a dramatic way to end the call, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So just socials, website, links. How can people, find you on the interwebs?
So I am most active on Twitter and Instagram. It's just my name. If you get rid of the space in between Anna and Hollinrake, that's me. You can find me on. It's the same on Blue Sky, Mastodon, Threads, TikTok, and probably YouTube. Who can say? Yeah, it's just my name. You'll find me there. But if I'm most active on and Tumblr. I really am trying to get back into Tumblr because in my opinion it's the best social media platform and has remained that way since for the past 5 years. So yeah, I'm on all of them. The best way to probably get in touch with me is maybe Twitter DMs or Instagram DMs. I acknowledge that I'm quite bad with them. You may have to poke me a few times. As I said, ADHD, it's one of my failings. But I also have an email as well. If you want to get in touch there, I'm anna@hollinrakecreative.com, which you can find on my website. But yeah, I have great SEO on my name. It's quite easy to find me. So yeah.
Yeah, good choice. Absolutely. Okay. I think that about does it. Thank you so much, Anna, for all your time.
No, thank you for having me. This has been great fun.
Thanks for answering all these questions. I hope everyone in chat, I hope this has been, something that I hope you've got something out of this. I hope it's been positive, enlightening, or after this, I hope it encourages you to go
That's
forward.
my neighbour.
Got a wave in the window. Hi neighbor. Excellent stuff. I'm glad he's enjoying the content as well. Cool. Anna, thank you so much for your time. And everyone, thanks for watching. Again,
Yeah,
this has
thank
been
you so
Into
much.
Games. Head on to intogames.com/courses if you want to know. Actually, not even .com. It's intogames.courses. Intogames.courses. Head on over there if you want to see more about those sprints. I think they're fantastic. But what can I say? I helped create one, so
Yeah,
I'm biased.
You're a great host. You're a very, very good host. And yeah, thank you so much for coming, everyone. It really means a lot to be able to chat
thank you,
through
everyone.
stuff.
So look after yourselves. I'm going to end the broadcast now. Oh my god, end of stream cat.
I know. I am. No, she's fascinating.
Okay. Good night, everyone. Look after yourselves, and see you all on the other side eventually.
Have a good one. Bye.
Cool. Bye-bye.